formatting plays a vital role when it comes to the readability of your worksheets. When we add a value into a cell in a spreadsheet, we can decide how we want that number to look. For example, it might be that we want it just to look like a plain old number. Or maybe that number is representing monetary values and we want it to look more like a currency. Or maybe we want it to show as a percentage. This is where number formatting comes into play. So on this worksheet, I have a few numbers and I've just repeated these numbers so we kind of have a little table going on over here. And notice the column headings. These are the four main types of formatting that I tend to use for numbers. Now, before we get on to applying this formatting, let's just take a look at what we mean by number formatting. Now, we're going to be doing a lot of work on the home ribbon in this lesson, and we're going to be using this number group just here. This is where you're going to find all of the tools that relate to number formatting. Now, notice currently my number formatting is set to general. And general is the default number formatting that's applied to all cells. So if you don't specify any other kind of formatting, this is the formatting that you're going to get. And what that basically means is if I was to type some numbers into these cells, they are simply going to display with no formatting. So effectively, they're going to display as I've typed them. And in some scenarios, that's absolutely fine. You don't necessarily have to apply number formatting to every single column or range of cells. If general works for you, that's absolutely fine. However, we do have other different types of formatting that we can apply to change the look of our numbers. And that's a really important point. You are literally just changing the way that these numbers are displaying. You're not actually changing anything related to the underlying number. And this will be illustrated more once we start applying different number formats. And number formatting is effectively applied to the cell that contains the number as opposed to the actual number. So if we take a look at this table, I'm going to select all of the numbers in this first column. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump up to our number formatting group, click the drop down, and this is going to open up a menu that shows me all the different types of number formatting that I can apply. And you'll see the top one there, general, no specific format. The next one down is number formatting. Now, if I click this, take a look at how that changes my numbers in the worksheet. I now have 2 decimal places after the number. So if you have some long numbers and it's important that you display those decimal places, this is a good format option to choose. Now, of course, we can also customize this. So maybe I want more decimal places, or maybe I want less. Well, again, up in this number group, notice we have these 2 little arrows for increased decimal and decreased decimal. So I could click once, twice to take those decimal places down, or I can increase them simply by clicking this button. So you have quite a bit of control there. Now, another thing to note here, and this is very much what I was saying, that you're not actually changing the underlying value, you're just applying formatting over the top. If you take a look at the cell I currently have selected and then glance up in the formula bar is showing me what the actual value underneath that formatting is. So in the formula bar, you can still see that the value of the cell is 20, but because I've applied number formatting, it looks different in the actual cell. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Let's apply some currency formatting to this second column. We're going to jump up to our drop down and go to currency. Again, this changes the look and feel of my numbers. This time I'm getting the pound currency symbol in front of all of my numbers. And again, I have 2 decimal places. If I wanted to take those down again, I could, or I could increase them. Now, another thing I could do here is I could change the currency symbol that I'm using. So I'm in the UK, so by default, my Excel and my Windows PC is set up to use British pounds. Now, if I want to change the currency symbol that I'm using, what I would need to do here is either click the drop down and go down to more number formats, or alternatively, I can click the diagonal arrow to take me into the Format Cells dialog box and the currency section. And from here, I can also adjust those decimal places and also change the currency symbol that I'm using. And we have pretty much all currency symbols in here. So it's just a case of scrolling through and finding the one that you want to use. Let's now take a look at accounting format. I'm going to select all of these cells, click the drop down, and this time we're going to go for accounting. Now take a look at this one because it is slightly different from the currency format. Again, this is just adding a currency symbol, but notice that with this format, the currency symbol is pushed all the way over to the left-hand side of the cell. And this is the main difference between accounting format and currency. Accounting format was really created for the accounting industry. And in the accounting industry, they generally tend to have to read down lots of line items of numbers. So to make that a little bit easier, accounting format moves that currency symbol out of the way, but it also makes sure that all of the decimal places are lined up. So it's much easier to read down a list of values. And then finally on the end here, we want to apply some percentage formatting. Now this is a little bit of a strange one. If I highlight all of these numbers, click the drop down and select percentage, look at what I get here. That isn't really what I was hoping for. Even if I decrease the decimal places, I'm still getting figures that I wasn't expecting. So let's undo a couple of times, because what I want these to say is basically 10%, 20%, 30%, so on and so forth. Now, if you have your numbers written out like this and you simply try to apply percentage format over the top, you're not going to get what you were expecting. In order for that to work, you would need to break these percentages down and divide them by 100 effectively. To get 10% when I apply the percentage format, I would need to have this written out as 0.10. Now, if I apply percentage format to that, and take those decimal places down, it gives me 10%. And an issue that I find that comes up all the time is that people have numbers written out like this in a spreadsheet, and then they're not sure how to get all of those numbers quickly converted into percentages. So we can fix this using a simple formula trick. All we need to do is select the cell D5, divide it by 100, and that gives us the value that we're looking for. We can then double click to copy this down, and then when we apply the percentage format, take those decimal places down, we get exactly what it is that we're looking for. Okay, so that's one way that you can do this. Another way is that you can simply type the percentage sign in when you're typing the number. So if I want 10% in a cell, if I type in 10 and then add the percentage sign, it's going to keep it on 10%, and oddly, it changes the number formatting of that cell to percentage. So just be aware of that. If you have numbers already in a spreadsheet and you try to apply percentage formatting, quite often that's not going to work. So you either need to type the percentage sign or add a formula that divides it by 100. Now, some of these other buttons that we have up in this number group, if we click this drop down, this is just a quick way for me to switch between three currencies I use most often. We have the percentage symbol just here that will quickly apply the percent style. And I also have a comma style here as well. And you'd use this if you had a longer number. So let's say I've got 2,500 written in a cell. If I want to add a comma to that, I can simply click comma style. It's going to add the comma, give me a couple of decimal places. I can get rid of those if I want to. But I now have comma style formatting applied to that number. Now, of course, when we click in this drop down, we have a whole host of other formats in here as well. And we're going to cover the next three: short date, long date, and time in the next lesson. Some of these others you won't use as often, so things like fractions, scientific format, and then we also have text. And as we've seen, if we click more number formats, that's going to jump us into our format cells dialog box, which gives us access to yet another menu item, which is custom. Because what you can do from here is create your own custom formats. Now, this is outside of the scope of this beginner's course, but just be aware that that is something you can do when you move up towards your more intermediate and advanced skills.